I arrived at the company picnic a little late, as usual, trying to juggle the last-minute chaos at the warehouse before I left. The sun was bright, the grass still damp from an early morning rain, and I could hear the faint hum of chatter and clinking coolers from the park's far end. It smelled like grilled hot dogs, sunscreen, and fresh-cut grass. Typical company picnic stuff. My wife, Julie, was already there. She always arrived early, always the social butterfly, always surrounded by a group of coworkers. It wasn't hard to spot her. She was the one with the perfect hair, the perfect outfit, and the kind of smile that made people laugh before she even opened her mouth. I spotted her near the drink station, chatting with a group of people from her finance team. She caught sight of me and waved, a little too enthusiastically, like she was about to announce something. My stomach tightened, because I knew what was coming. It always came. "Hey, look who showed up. Mr. Dad Fashion himself," she called out, loud enough for the group to hear. She gestured at me, pointing out the khaki shorts and plain polo I'd put on in an attempt to blend in. Not that I cared much. I was here for the hot dogs, not the fashion show. A few laughs erupted from the group, and I could see the way her eyes gleamed, like she was savoring the moment, the way she had a knack for embarrassing me just enough that it was awkward, but not so much that it seemed like too much. I knew it wasn't an accident. She thrived on this, being the one who got to make me the punchline. I kept my face neutral, made my way over to the table, and grabbed a soda. I didn't want to engage. I knew what would happen if I did. The barbs, the sarcasm, the smirks. She'd tear me down in front of everyone, and I'd take it because I didn't want to be the one to make a scene. The whole thing was becoming too familiar. But I wasn't the only one watching. There was Lana from accounting. I'd seen her around the office but never really talked to her. She was standing off to the side, her arms folded across her chest, just watching. No judgment in her expression, just watching. I felt her eyes on me, and for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel invisible. The afternoon dragged on, and Julie's teasing didn't stop. It was like she'd made it her mission to make me the punchline for every conversation. Every time someone would ask about the warehouse, or work, or the kids, she'd chime in with a sarcastic twist, like she couldn't help herself. When someone mentioned the safety award I'd gotten last month, she was quick to interrupt, her laugh sharp and loud. "Oh yeah, they just hand those out for showing up," she said, eyes scanning the group to make sure everyone heard. There was a slight edge to her voice, like she was trying to make me seem like I didn't deserve it. The kind of humor that made everyone chuckle, but left a pit in my stomach. The thing was, she didn't even need to do it. She could have just been proud of me. It wasn't like I didn't work hard, but she didn't care. I think she liked making me small, like it gave her some sense of control. Later, we made our way over to the grill, and that's when it took another turn. I was just trying to get the hot dogs cooked right. Not too burnt, not too raw. But of course she was there, hovering, watching like a hawk. "You're not gonna overcook those again, are you?" she asked, raising an eyebrow, like she was the one who'd been on the grill all afternoon. I kept my mouth shut. If I said something, she'd just turn it into another jab. The other guys standing around the grill didn't even try to hide their grins. It wasn't a joke anymore. Not to me. But they laughed anyway, not wanting to get caught in the middle. I was trying not to look at Lana, but I couldn't help it. She was standing by the snack table again, watching just like before. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't taking sides. She was just observing. There was something different about her, like she wasn't participating in the show, but she was seeing something real that everyone else was missing. As I grabbed a plate and started loading it up, Lana came up next to me, close enough that I could hear her quiet voice over the hum of the crowd. "You're a patient man," she said, almost like she was saying it to herself, not to me. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to make it awkward. "Yeah, well, sometimes that's the best option," I said, trying to keep it light, but my voice came out flat. I didn't really believe it. Lana just nodded, but there was this flicker of understanding in her eyes, like she saw more than just the surface. It hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. She didn't think I was just letting things slide. She recognized that I was holding back, trying to keep the peace. It felt like the first time in a long time someone had acknowledged the weight of it. Before I could say anything else, Julie appeared, grabbing my arm with a little more force than necessary, like she was marking her territory. "You're probably gonna overcook the hot dogs again, aren't you?" she said, a smug little smile creeping up. Her voice was sharp, like she was daring me to defend myself. I didn't. Not this time. It wasn't worth it. But Lana, still standing nearby, gave me a small, almost imperceptible look. One that said, "I see you." It made the next few moments feel like I was on the outside looking in. Like everything Julie was doing wasn't just a joke anymore. It wasn't funny. Not to me. Not to Lana. It made me wonder how many other people were noticing what was happening. The day wore on, the sun slowly dipping behind the trees, casting long shadows over the picnic tables. Julie had kept up her mocking, her little jabs thrown with the same practiced ease as always. She was telling a story to a group about our anniversary dinner. One of those remember when? Moments that always came with an extra dose of sarcasm. And then he took me to that fancy restaurant, and I swear, the waiter had to explain the menu to him twice. She laughed, nudging me like it was some kind of shared joke. He couldn't even pronounce half the dishes. It was adorable, but not the kind of adorable that makes you want to take him home, if you know what I mean. The group chuckled, and Julie beamed, basking in the attention. I stayed quiet, but my chest tightened. Every time she did this, it was like she was reminding everyone that I wasn't enough. Not smooth enough, not sharp enough, not her type anymore. The laughter around me made me feel smaller. But there was no point in arguing. Not here. Not now. I gave her a tight smile and muttered, "I'm learning a lot today about how you see me." It was soft, quieter than I meant it to be. But the words were out before I could stop them. She just shrugged, flicking a hand in the air, brushing me off. "You're too sensitive," she said, her voice dismissive. Her eyes didn't even meet mine, already moving on to the next conversation. I felt my stomach sink, but I didn't argue. She'd always said that, always dismissed anything I said that didn't fit the script. Too sensitive was code for too real. I grabbed a drink, my hands shaking just slightly, trying to push it all back. The day was almost over. I just needed to get through it. I found a quieter corner by the drink station, hoping to catch a few minutes of peace. And that's when Lana showed up again. She didn't say anything at first, just stood next to me, watching the crowd for a moment. I didn't know why she was even talking to me, but I didn't mind. She wasn't like the others. She didn't laugh at me. Finally, after a beat, she turned to me and asked, "Are you single?" The question hit harder than I expected. Not because it was inappropriate, it wasn't, but because of how it made me feel. Like maybe she saw something I didn't even realize I was missing. Like I was still a person, not just some joke to be tossed around. "No," I said, shaking my head, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not." She nodded, but her eyes held mine for a second longer. "I've been watching you," she said quietly. "The way you stay composed, no matter how many times she shuts you down or makes you the joke. It's not easy, but you keep it together." Her words hung in the air, and I didn't know how to respond. It wasn't a compliment, not really, but it felt like the first time anyone saw me for me. She wasn't pitying me, but she was acknowledging something I couldn't put into words, and that was more than I'd gotten in years. Before I could say anything back, I saw Julie's figure at the edge of the crowd. She was walking toward us, her gaze already narrowing as she registered the two of us standing together. There was no mistaking the shift in her demeanor. She went from smug to something else, something colder. She slid a hand possessively around my arm, as if to claim me back. "Oh, so you two are chatting now?" she said, her voice too bright, too sharp. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She didn't wait for me to answer. "You've really got a knack for choosing who to spend time with, don't you?" she added, eyeing Lana like she was an intruder. Lana, unfazed, met her gaze evenly. There was no tension in her posture, no defensive shift. She was calm, maybe even a little amused by the sudden territorial show. I wasn't sure what I felt. I didn't care about the scene Julie was trying to make. Not anymore. But seeing the way Julie was acting, like she was threatened, like she had to fight for my attention, something inside me twisted. It didn't feel like a partnership. It didn't feel like love. Just talking, I said, trying to keep things neutral, but it didn't feel neutral anymore. Felt like a subtle line being drawn. Julie, still gripping my arm, gave Lana one last, hard look before turning her focus back to me, a silent warning in her eyes. I looked at Lana again. This time, she didn't turn away. She didn't shrink. It was like she was still standing there, even though the world around us was shifting. Julie's grip on my arm tightened as we made our way through the crowd. She steered me toward the largest groups now, as if keeping me surrounded would somehow erase the uncomfortable tension that was creeping between us. She was colder now, the smile on her face tight and forced. "Can you believe some women?" she said, her voice just loud enough to reach the nearest table. "Flirting with married men like it's cute." She glanced at me, eyes gleaming with something that wasn't amusement. Shameless, really? I could feel her eyes flick to Lana, who was standing a little further off, pretending to be absorbed in a conversation with one of the other guys. I knew exactly what Julie was doing, trying to make this some public thing. She wanted me to pick a side, wanted me to confirm the little narrative she'd already created in her head. That Lana was some kind of threat. I stayed quiet. My mouth felt dry, but I kept my gaze on the ground, not looking at Lana, not looking at Julie. The sound of the crowd faded around me, the space between us suddenly feeling like a wide gulf. Julie didn't give up, though. She kept talking, her voice rising as she fed off the energy of the group. You'd think some women could take a hint, but no. They'll keep pushing until they've made things awkward. She laughed again, louder this time, and I could feel the heat in my cheeks as she tried to get me to join in, to play along. But I couldn't. Not anymore. It was like everything she'd said today, all those little jabs and passive-aggressive comments, had built up to this one moment. She wasn't just trying to embarrass me anymore. She was digging in her heels, making sure everyone around us saw me as less, as the fool who couldn't even stand up for himself. I looked over at Lana. She was watching me now, her eyes steady, not judgmental, but knowing. I could tell she'd been waiting for this. She wasn't the one making the scene, but she saw me in a way no one else had. And then it hit me, the sharp clarity that I couldn't ignore anymore. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything settle in my chest. I had stayed quiet for so long. I'd let her make me small. But the truth was, it wasn't just the jokes, the cutting comments. It was how she controlled everything. How she made me the joke and turned it into a power play. "Julie," I said, my voice quiet at first. The crowd was still laughing, still oblivious. But it was like everything snapped into focus as soon as I spoke. "What's embarrassing," I said, louder this time, "is how you've spent the entire day mocking me." I paused, letting the words sit in the air between us. The noise of the picnic seemed to dim, like the whole world was holding its breath. Julie's smile faltered for a second, and I didn't look away. I didn't back down. "I'm not your punchline, Julie," I said, and this time, my voice was clear, controlled. "You've made sure everyone knows how clueless I am at home, how I don't know how to grill, how I'm too sensitive, how I don't deserve my safety award." I stepped forward, and she instinctively took a half step back, though she tried to hide it behind a shrug. "But here's the thing. I'm not clueless. And I'm not your joke anymore." I let that sink in, the crowd now watching us. Some of them looked uncomfortable, others glanced at each other, unsure how to react. A few of them had probably heard the jabs all afternoon, but most just laughed along, not wanting to rock the boat. I could see it now, the awkwardness on their faces, the way they shifted their weight from foot to foot. They weren't as invested in the show as Julie thought, and I wasn't going to be part of it anymore. Julie's mouth opened, probably to argue, but I wasn't done. "And you know what's funny?" I continued more calmly than I felt. "None of those people are laughing now. Not because of me, but because of you." The words hung in the air, and Julie's face flushed. The crowd was silent, waiting for her to say something, to save face. But she didn't. For the first time today, she was the one who didn't have control of the room. I stood there for a second, letting it all settle. The silence felt heavy, like the whole picnic had paused just for me to say that. I looked at Julie, really looked at her, and I could see the realization in her eyes. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to me calling her out. Her eyes shifted to Lana, then back to me. But she didn't say a word. I turned to walk away, feeling the heat of all their eyes on me, and I didn't care anymore. The words I'd said felt like a weight I'd been carrying for too long, lifted. I could feel the change in the air, even as Julie's sharp breath followed behind me. Lana was still standing there, watching me with that calm, knowing look. I didn't need her approval, but somehow I felt like I had it anyway. I didn't look back when I walked away, but I could hear the tension crackling behind me. Julie's footsteps followed, quick and sharp. She caught up just as I reached the edge of the group, standing there like she had something to prove. "What the hell was that, huh?" she demanded, her voice tight, like she was holding on to a thread of control. "You think you can just call me out in front of everyone? Make me look like the bad guy?" I turned slowly to face her, feeling the weight of the moment settle over us. "I didn't make you look like anything. You did that yourself." She took a step back, and for a second, I thought she might actually shut up. But then she smirked, like she was playing some game that I was no longer interested in. "Oh, come on. It was just a joke. Okay? You're too sensitive. You always have been." The same words, the same tired excuses. I wasn't going to let her spin this again. "It's not funny anymore, Julie," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You've been doing it for years, tearing me down piece by piece. It's not a joke. Not to me." Her eyes flickered, a flash of frustration in them before she quickly masked it with a feigned innocence. "Oh, please, it's just a little teasing. Why are you acting like this is a big deal?" I didn't respond right away. Instead, I noticed a few people from the crowd looking over. Some of them had been laughing with Julie earlier, but now their faces were tight with discomfort. I didn't need to read their expressions to know they could hear the shift in the air. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the people who'd witnessed everything. And then Lana, who had been watching from the side, stepped forward. She didn't hesitate, didn't shrink away like most people would in a moment like this. She addressed Julie with the same calm, direct tone she'd used with me earlier. "You're wrong," Lana said, her voice cutting through the tension. "What you've been doing today isn't teasing. It's belittling. You've been mocking him all afternoon in front of everyone. And it's not a joke. He deserves better than that. He deserves to be treated like a partner, not some character you can turn into the butt of your jokes." Julie's smile dropped completely now, replaced with a snarl. "Oh, so now you're playing the hero?" she shot back, her voice rising. "You think you know what's best for him? You're just trying to steal my man, aren't you?" Her words were like a slap. She looked at me, expecting me to side with her, to somehow defend her accusation. But all I could think about was how desperate her words sounded. Like she was trying to make a situation out of nothing because she couldn't face what was really happening. The people who had been standing around awkwardly earlier were starting to take a step back, clearly uncomfortable with the scene. It wasn't just me who felt the shift in the air. It was everyone. Lana didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. "You're not hearing him," she said, her voice unwavering. "He's not your joke to make, Julie. He's a person. He's been patient for a long time, but people can only take so much." Julie looked between us, eyes flashing with something dangerous. She took a step toward Lana, then looked back at me, as if daring me to make a decision. I wasn't going to argue with her anymore. Not here, not in front of everyone. "I'm not leaving," I said, my words slow but clear. "I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day." Julie's eyes narrowed as she looked me over, her face hardening. Without another word, she spun on her heel and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She didn't say anything more, but I could hear the muffled sound of her stomping off toward her car. And for the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. I turned back toward the picnic, the awkward silence still hanging in the air. But slowly, people started moving again. The tension began to melt away, and I could feel the weight of the eyes that had been on me for so long lift off my shoulders. A few coworkers who'd been standing nearby came over, offering quiet nods and back pats. Some muttered things like, "Good for you," or "You did the right thing." It wasn't much, but it was something. I could tell they were still processing, still unsure of what they'd just witnessed. But they weren't avoiding me anymore. I grabbed another drink, a beer this time, and leaned against the picnic table. I didn't know if it was relief or something else, but the whole scene had shifted. Julie was gone, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was carrying her with me. Lana was still standing a little ways off, watching the group. I could feel her eyes on me, but this time, there was no judgment, just understanding, maybe even a little respect. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do now, but for the first time today, I was finally feeling like I wasn't invisible anymore. I hadn't been home long when Julie showed up at the door, her face flushed with anger, her movements quick and sharp. She barely looked at me before she started in. "How dare you?" she spat, her voice low and tight. "How dare you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? You humiliated me, made me look like some kind of villain. What the hell is wrong with you?" I didn't flinch. I just stood there, the weight of the day still hanging over me. My chest felt tight, but I wasn't going to apologize. Not this time. I met her eyes, steady but calm. "The real humiliation wasn't mine," I said quietly. "It was yours. You just didn't notice until someone finally held up a mirror." Her mouth tightened, her eyes narrowing. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, pacing around the living room like she was looking for something to throw. "I'm the one who's been humiliated, and you're acting like I'm the one who did something wrong. You're the one who started all of this. What the hell happened to you? We're supposed to be a team." I didn't answer. I wasn't interested in arguing in circles anymore. Her logic had always been twisted, a set of rules that only applied to me and never to her. Julie's voice rose again, more frantic now. "This is just one bad day, okay? We can fix this. It doesn't have to be like this. We can move on. Forget about it like we always do. Please don't do this. Don't leave." Her eyes were wide, desperate, like she was trying to pull me back into the trap. I turned and walked upstairs. I didn't say anything. The sound of her footsteps followed me, but I didn't stop. "I'm packing," I called down, and I heard her freeze, then start to climb the stairs after me, her voice shaking now. "Don't you dare," she said, trying to sound commanding, but I could hear the fear creeping in. "You're just going to leave? Over one thing? Over one day? You're making a mistake. You're throwing everything away." I was already opening the closet, pulling out my things. The weight of the clothes in my hands felt strangely light, like I was finally shedding a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. I didn't look at her, didn't respond. I kept packing, methodical, slow. She grabbed my arm, pulling me back, her nails digging into my skin. "You can't leave me. You can't do this to me." She was trying to sound calm now, trying to bargain, but there was no mistaking the edge in her voice. "We've been together for years, and now you're just going to walk away because of one bad day? You're throwing away everything we've built." I didn't shake her off. I just kept packing, feeling her grip loosen as I worked. "This isn't one day," I said, finally turning to face her, my voice steady but final. "It's 8 years. It's been building up for 8 years, Julie. And I'm done." Her face twisted. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something else, but the words caught in her throat. She couldn't spin this anymore. "Please," she begged. But it wasn't the same as before. It wasn't the plea for a quick fix, for another chance at control. It was something different now, quieter, more desperate. "You don't mean it." I shook my head. "I do." I finished packing my bag, zipped it up, and stood there for a moment. Julie was still standing in the doorway, her hands shaking at her sides. She didn't try to stop me anymore. "I'm staying with my brother," I said, walking past her. The silence in the room stretched between us, thick and heavy. She didn't follow me downstairs, didn't try to stop me. I didn't look back as I grabbed my keys and walked out. She was still standing in the doorway when I closed the door behind me, the sound of it clicking shut louder than anything I'd said. I drove to my brother's place in silence, the weight in my chest easing just a little with every mile. I didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a choice. The first couple of days at my brother's place were quiet. I spent most of my time pacing, trying to focus on something, anything, besides the mess I'd left behind. I knew I had to deal with the fallout, but the silence felt like a small victory, like a breath I didn't realize I was holding in. I didn't respond to any of Julie's texts or calls, but that didn't stop her from blowing up my phone. At first, it was rage, angry, short messages that came in waves. "You ruined everything. You humiliated me. What the hell is wrong with you?" I didn't respond, didn't give her anything to latch onto. But then the messages started shifting. Her tone became desperate, pleading. "Please, we can fix this. I can change. You know I didn't mean to hurt you." And then the guilt trips. "You're just going to throw away everything we've built? Do you really think you can walk away from this?" Each message felt like a stab, but I didn't let it get to me. Not anymore. I knew what I had to do, even if it hurt. The silence between us was louder than any argument we'd ever had. By the end of the week, I got a call from my brother. "Hey man," he said, his voice low. "Julie's been calling, trying to spin some story. She's telling everyone you had a meltdown at the picnic, that you just lost it, and now you're acting all crazy." I squeezed the phone in my hand, the anger rising, but I kept my voice even. "I know. She's trying to make herself look good, trying to play the victim." He didn't say anything for a second, just let the silence hang there. Then, "I don't know how she's managed to do this for so long. You deserve better. You know that, right?" I didn't respond to that, but his words stuck with me. I wasn't sure what better even looked like yet, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not like this. The next day, my mom called. Her voice was shaky, like she wasn't sure what to say. "I've been hearing a lot of things," she said. "Are you okay? What happened at the picnic?" I took a deep breath. I wasn't in the mood for any of the drama, but I also knew my mom wasn't the one who needed to hear it from someone else. "It's over, Mom," I said, my voice calm. "Julie and I are done." That's not what she's saying. I didn't snap. I just stopped pretending. There was a pause on the other end, like she was processing the words. Then quietly she spoke. "I never liked the way she talked about you at family gatherings. The little jabs, the jokes. I always thought it was just her way, you know? But it's always bothered me. I should have said something. I didn't know what to say. I'd heard those jokes for years, heard them and ignored them like everyone else. But hearing it from my mom, it made something inside me snap again. And I was suddenly angry, but not at her. "Yeah," I said, swallowing hard. "I guess we all ignored it. I never wanted to get in the middle of it," she went on, her voice small now. "But I've seen it. It wasn't right." I didn't know what to say to that. I hadn't expected her to admit it. Hell, I hadn't expected anyone to say anything. It wasn't just Julie I'd been blind to. It was everyone else, too. They'd seen it. They'd all seen it, and no one had stepped in. I couldn't blame them, though. No one had ever told me that it was okay to see what was wrong. The next few days, I started getting texts and calls from extended family, cousins, aunts, even some of my coworkers. They all said the same thing we've noticed. One cousin, who had always been kind to me at family gatherings, reached out with a simple message. "We always saw how she treated you. Just didn't know how to say anything. We're sorry. You didn't deserve that." Another coworker, someone I barely knew outside of work, messaged me. "I didn't realize how much you've been taking. You're a good guy, man. You don't deserve to be anyone's punching bag." It wasn't like I was looking for validation, but hearing it from people who'd noticed, who had quietly observed everything, felt like something clicking into place. The truth had been there all along. I just wasn't ready to see it until now. Julie's calls still kept coming, but each one felt less and less important. I was finally beginning to see how many people had seen the truth for what it was. How many people knew what was going on, but never spoke up. And in a strange way, that made me feel a little less alone. I hadn't planned on going back to the house so soon. The place still felt like a reminder of everything I was trying to leave behind. But I needed to grab some mail, and I knew there were legal documents to sort through. No point in putting it off. I walked through the front door, the silence of the house hitting me the moment I stepped inside. It felt empty. Even with all my stuff still packed in boxes, it felt empty, like it wasn't really mine anymore. I walked through the rooms, picking up the mail and the papers I needed. As I went into the kitchen to grab a couple of things, I heard footsteps on the front porch. I glanced out the window and saw Lana walking toward the door, looking like she hadn't planned on finding me here. She stopped when she saw me, her hand frozen on the doorframe. For a second, she didn't speak, just gave me a small, cautious smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." I nodded. "I'm just grabbing some stuff. Nothing more to it." She stepped in, her eyes scanning the familiar place. "I understand. You need to get it all sorted." She paused for a beat, like she was choosing her words carefully. "I'm glad you're getting it over with. It can't be easy." I shrugged, though the weight of everything was heavier than I let on. "It's not, but it has to be done." Lana's gaze shifted to the pile of mail I had set down on the counter, but she didn't move toward it. Instead, her eyes met mine again, and there was something different in them. "The neighbors," she said, her voice quieter. "They've been talking about you." I frowned, unsure where this was going. "What about me?" "Some of them came up to me," she explained, her tone almost apologetic. "They said they were sorry for not speaking up sooner, for not saying anything about what was going on." She hesitated before continuing. "Apparently, a lot of people noticed the way Julie treated you. Some of them even avoided inviting you guys to things because they were uncomfortable with how she treated you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I always thought people ignored it or worse, didn't care. But knowing that people had seen it, recognized it, that stung. I didn't know if it was relief or just the realization that I had been so blind to it for so long. "You're kidding," I said, shaking my head. "All those years, and no one said a word?" Lana's face softened. "People are uncomfortable getting involved in other people's marriages. It's not always easy to step in." She paused. "But you don't have to keep living in that shadow. I'm glad you finally saw it. I know it wasn't easy, but you're doing what's best for you." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the truth settle in. I didn't realize how much I'd been hiding from, or how many people were quietly watching. Lana stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "It's easy to keep quiet when you don't want to rock the boat, but it doesn't make it right. What she did, it wasn't just hard on you. It was hard on everyone who cared about you." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I stayed quiet for a moment. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, though. She wasn't pushing me, wasn't making this more than it needed to be. She was just there. It felt different from the way I'd been treated before. She shifted on her feet, then added, "When things settle down for you, if you ever want to finish that conversation we started the other day, I'd still like to, but only if you want to." Her words were simple, but they hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. It wasn't about fixing anything, wasn't about rushing into something new. It was just an open door, a way to be heard, to be seen. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure what that meant yet. I wasn't sure where I was even headed, but it felt like the possibility, the chance, was enough for now. She smiled, a little more warmly this time, and gave a small nod. "I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, you know where to find me." And just like that, she turned and left, her steps light, unhurried. I watched her go, the door clicking shut behind her. I stood there for a moment, looking at the mess I'd left behind in the house, the life I'd outgrown. And for the first time, I wasn't in a rush to put it all back together. The pieces could wait. It was 2 days after Lana left, and I was still getting used to the quiet, to not having Julie's voice echoing through the house with her sarcastic remarks or demands. I hadn't heard from Julie in a while, just the occasional text, each one more desperate than the last. But I was starting to breathe again. I was starting to remember what it felt like to think without the constant weight of her words on my shoulders. That's when the knock came at my brother's door. It was sharp, insistent, like someone was waiting for permission to step inside. I opened the door without thinking, not expecting anyone. But there she was, Julie. Her eyes red, face blotchy, and her hair a little too neat for someone who'd shown up uninvited. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I wasn't sure what to say. She'd come, and it was clear she wasn't leaving without a fight. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice cracking. I stepped aside to let her in, but I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't know what she expected, but I knew I wasn't giving her any room to twist this into something else. Julie glanced around, clearly uncomfortable, like she didn't belong in my brother's place. I need you to listen, please. I don't know what happened, but I want to fix this." I stayed calm, though it wasn't easy. "I'm done being your emotional punching bag, Julie. I've been trying to hold this all together, but I can't anymore. I can't keep pretending that I don't feel small every time you make me the joke." Her expression shifted, like she couldn't quite understand what I was saying. "What are you talking about?" she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "You're leaving me over one conversation with a stranger? One thing at the picnic? I don't get it. You're overreacting." I shook my head. "No, Julie. I left you because I realized what respect feels like. I never realized I wasn't getting it until someone else reminded me that I deserve better." Her face hardened. She stepped closer to me, but I didn't back down. "You're really going to throw away 8 years over one conversation? One mistake?" She took a breath, like she was trying to gather her words, but I wasn't buying it anymore. "I'll change, okay? We can go to therapy, we can fix everything. I'll do whatever it takes." The words she always used. "I'll change." But I knew now it wasn't about change. It was about control. About making me feel like I was the one causing all the problems. About keeping me stuck in a cycle of apologies and promises that never stuck. I crossed my arms, steady and clear. "It's too late. You had your chance, Julie. You've had years to change, but you didn't. And now I'm not going back to that." Her face twisted with frustration, but there was something else there. Fear. Real fear. "So this is it? You're just going to walk away from everything? You're just going to leave me like this?" She backed up, hands wringing together, the anger giving way to vulnerability. "Don't you care about what we had?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took a slow, steady breath, feeling the clarity of what I was about to do. "I care about respect, Julie. I care about being treated like a partner. I can't keep sacrificing myself for you to feel better. That's not love." She stood there for a long moment, her chest rising and falling with every shallow breath. "Please don't do this," she whispered. "I can't lose you." I didn't let the guilt settle in. I wasn't the one who was losing anything. "I'm not your safety net anymore, and I'm not going to be the person you turn to when everything else falls apart. This is the end." I watched her face crumble, watched her shoulders sag as she realized she wasn't going to win this time. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I held up a hand. "Goodbye, Julie." I didn't wait for her response. I turned, walked to the door, and opened it wide. I stood there, waiting, letting the finality of it settle. Julie lingered, her eyes still searching mine for some sign that I would change my mind. But I didn't, and after a long, painful pause, she finally left, walking out without another word. I closed the door behind her, and it felt like a weight had lifted. There was no relief in the moment, no deep exhale of air. Just clarity. It was done. 2 weeks later, I signed the divorce papers. It wasn't about spite or anger anymore. It wasn't about hurting her. It was about me moving on, about realizing I didn't need to live under her thumb anymore. I didn't look back, and somehow that felt like the most peaceful thing I'd done in years. 6 months later, I was settled into a small house just a few blocks away. The place wasn't much, but it was mine. It was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I could hear myself think. The days weren't perfect, but they were mine to shape. No more tension, no more walking on eggshells. Just peace. I'd started reconnecting with old friends, the ones I hadn't seen in years because Julie made it hard to even think about socializing. The neighbors who used to barely wave now greeted me with open arms. A few of them had apologized, quietly relieved that the awkward tension from the past was finally gone. It was weird at first, being invited to dinners and events again, but it felt like a weight I didn't know I was carrying had finally been lifted. I was at the grocery store one afternoon when I saw her, Lana. She was in the checkout line, her cart half full, looking a little more at ease than I remembered. I wasn't sure if I should approach her, but she saw me first. Her face lit up with a genuine smile, and she walked over without hesitation. "Hey," she said, her voice light, casual. "It's been a while." I smiled back, feeling an unexpected sense of ease. "Yeah, it has. How's everything?" We stood there for a moment, the usual small talk flowing effortlessly. It was nice. Easy. There was no tension, no awkwardness, just a couple of people who had shared a moment and were now reconnecting. Eventually, she asked, "Do you ever regret it? Standing up for yourself that day?" I looked at her, took a beat to really think about it. "No," I said slowly. "I only regret waiting so long, but I'm glad I finally did something about it." She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. "I'm glad you did too," she said, her voice softening just a little. "Sometimes it takes a while to realize you're worth more than the way you've been treated." There was a pause between us, comfortable but full of unsaid things. Finally, she smiled again. "Well, when things settle down for you, if you want to grab dinner, I'd like that. Not as some rebound thing. Just two adults who've seen the best and worst of each other." It wasn't what I expected, but it was honest. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was being pushed into anything. "Yeah," I said. "That sounds good." Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and the air started to cool, I stood on the back patio, grilling some chicken and enjoying the hum of the neighborhood around me. I had a beer in my hand, the bottle cold against my palm. Everything felt different now. Simple, steady, like I was finally where I was supposed to be. I raised the beer to no one in particular, a quiet smile playing at my lips. It wasn't just the house or the neighborhood or the people. It was me. I had chosen peace. I'd chosen to be treated with respect, not just tolerance. And as the sun slipped beneath the horizon, I realized just how much that choice had changed everything. I took a long drink, savoring the moment, knowing that I was no longer just getting by. I was living.